Everyone, and welcome back to Jola Speaks. Thank you for joining me today. Today is indeed the day the Lord has made, and we are rejoicing and gladdened by it. So today we're going to continue our conversation on restoration. Yesterday we discussed how God restored, in magnificent fold, and used the union between Bathsheba and David to bring forth Solomon. Where David felt, oh my God, I have disobeyed God. Oh my God, this is a shameful thing. He used that same union to bring forth Solomon. And it is shown here that God even sent Nathan to David, right, to give him the name Jedediah. That name Jedediah means loved by God, which means Solomon was loved by God. And we can see how wise and full of wisdom Solomon was. How God used David, this same David, and what we call the sin that he was very ashamed of, to bring forth such significant life through it. Another way God restored David was even through his battle, his field, right? His battlefield. His actual, assignment of protecting and increasing Israel as the king of Israel. And so I'm going to read 2 Samuel verses 12, chapter 12, verses 26 to 30, and I'll discuss the information afterwards. Meanwhile, Joab fought against. So meanwhile, that's when Bathsheba had given birth to Solomon. Meanwhile, Joab fought, or maybe during the time, I'm not sure. Meanwhile, Joab fought against Rabbah of the Ammonites and captured the royal citadel. Joab then sent messengers to David, saying, I have taken over the water supply. Now muster the rest of the troops and besiege the city and capture it. Otherwise, I will take the city and it will be named after me. So David mustered the whole entire army and went to Rabbah and attacked and captured it. David took the crown from their king's head, and it was placed on his own head. It weighed 1 talent of gold, and it was set with precious stones. David took a great quantity of the plunder from the city and brought out the people who were there, consigning them to labor with saws and with the iron picks and axes, and he made them work at brick-making. David did this to all the Ammonite towns. Then he and the entire army returned to Israel. This one I find very interesting because we see that David, right, had gone through a hiatus where he wasn't going any war for 2 years. Since the last time he didn't go for that war in chapter 11, when he suddenly realized that, oh my God, I see Bathsheba, etc. He hadn't really been to war. And so in 2 years, you'd easily wonder, can I do it again? Would I go? Would God, be with me? Right? I have so sinned against the Lord. I've done this grave sin. It's horrible. It's horrific. etc. Blah, blah, blah. Would I still be used by God? Right? Because, if we look at David's journey in terms of his going to battle, the battlefield, etc., it was evidently clear. It was evidently clear that God was with him. It didn't make sense how we would win wars when they are well outnumbered. He would always win. And so after going through this whole Bathsheba and him story, the whole adultery, etc., and murder, etc., it was hard. And I'm sure there are times where the devil say, well, you did that. Can God ever use you? This was again reminding him that God is so merciful and God is still using him even in the battlefield that God always did previously. And so when he got a call from Joab saying, if you don't come, I will name the city after me, he took that charge and ran with it and did go to war, right? And attacked and captured the particular place that he was going for. And so again, he was triumphant in his battle. That's another very important way that God restored David back to who he had called him to be. And so today I have an encouraging word. Do you feel like, oh my God, I have so done the worst thing in the world that God can no longer use me? Do you think, oh my God, this is the worst thing ever? God, in fact, you have also, you've already condemned yourself to the point where you don't even think God can use you. So it's not even about God even saying, you yourself have said, you know what, actually, I don't expect God to use me, right? Whatever it is. Can I use David as an example for you to show you how God is merciful and how God restores? Yesterday, we saw how God restored David, and used that same union that he looked at in pain and shame and brought out Solomon. It is same God. He went to war after 2 years of not doing much, and he was still successful because God never left David. And so God never left your side. Maybe you think, oh, God has left me. Oh, I have done this. I have sinned against the Lord. I have done this worst, horrible thing. Whatever it is, you can fill in the gaps. God has never left your side. And he will restore everything. And he can still use you, despite all that may have happened. A human being may not think it's possible, but with God, all things are possible. And so whatever it is that you think, oh, you have sinned against God, you have disobeyed, whatever area of sin, if you list out, it seems to be so many, you are so ashamed, whatever excuse or whatever fear or lie the devil is selling to you about what you may have done in the past, and what your past is, and how your past looks like, and how horrible it is, and how impossible for God to use you. I come to tell you the truth, that God can still use you. You see, David going to battle was him saying, Lord, I trust you. Because he knows that in the battle fought, God was always with him, and he kept winning. So he's saying, God, here too, I trust you, and I'm going to go. And he went there, and clearly evident that God was still with him, and God still used him and has restored back to him, and restored him to who he was before. What is it that you are thinking and you are scared of? Maybe it's your fault. Who knows? It was David's fault, whatever happened to him. When we fault, it was the one that disobeyed God, so disobeyed and did not go to war and slept with committed adultery. He was the one that did it. He did it himself, but God still used him to do what he wanted to do. And we can see as we go on the battle, we see how much God still used him, how God still used his generations. Jesus was still born from the lineage of David. God was still using David, despite of how, as you say, imperfect that he is. Despite his past, despite the present situation that he went through just before he went to battle, God still used him. Come to the Lord. He's merciful. You see, David worshipped God in his lowest low. David pleaded with God for mercy. God used him. God can still use you. No matter what you think, no matter the lie that is sending to you, I'm telling you the truth. God can still use you. There's no one that's out of the way that God cannot use. Sorry, there's nothing that God cannot use. It's impossible. God is God. Everything he can use to align to his will, no matter what it is. So I encourage you today, trust God. God will use you. Thank you for joining me today. I hope this encourages you in whatever you're going through. Thank you. Have a wonderful day. And I love you. Bye.